Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Thursday, February 18th, 2021. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the latest film and TV news. My name is Ben Pearson. I'm a senior writer at slashfilm.com, and I'm joined on today's episode by Slash Film weekend editor Brad Oman
Hey, that's me.
and writer Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
All right, guys, before we dive in, I just have to let everybody know and the listeners know that my neighbor is having his roof redone, so you may hear some drilling and buzzing and hammering and general construction noises bleed into this audio. I'm going to do my best to mute this mic whenever I'm not talking, but just in case you hear any, weird noises in the background, that's what's going on. So don't be alarmed. With that caveat out of the way, let's dive into today's news. I don't imagine it's going to be a super long episode, but because several of the stories don't have a ton of information sort of attached to them. And first and foremost being Jordan Peele's new movie. Chris, I know we don't know a lot about this, but what do we know about Peele's new film?
We know that Keke Palmer is officially attached to star, and Daniel Kaluuya, who, of course, appeared in Get Out, is very close to closing his deal and will likely be in the film as well. And that's really it. We know it's going to be another Jordan Peele horror movie with like social themes again, just like Get Out and Us. But beyond that, there are very few details. Oh, we also know the release date, July 22nd, 2022. So that's it, folks. That's all you get.
Keke Palmer, I feel like was sort of like she came out of like the Nickelodeon school. Am I right about that? Brad, do you know anything? I feel like you're still a little bit more tapped into that whole Nickelodeon vibe.
You love Nickelodeon, Brad.
I mean, not that you like actively watch stuff, but I feel like you're a little bit more attuned to some of that than I am. Is that true? Did Keke Palmer sort of emerge from that sort of acting style?
First of all, you guys are right. I do love Nickelodeon. However, I'm not necessarily up and up on some of the more recent developments, and so that sounds correct. I vaguely remember something like that, but I honestly don't know like what show it was on or anything like that. But I do believe that she did start over there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at her IMDb right now, and Aquila in the Bee from 2006, I think was a real big sort of coming out moment for her. And yeah, she's on a ton of Nickelodeon shows. She was on Degrassi, and then True Jackson VP, I think might be the one that I was thinking of, the Nickelodeon show. But I think maybe our listeners who don't watch children's television might most recently recognize her from Hustlers, which she played a supporting role in that film. So yeah, that's kind of exciting news. And obviously the reunion with Daniel Kaluuya is really exciting, especially since he has just proven to be like even more of a dynamic presence than, in the years since Get Out. So I'm very excited to see what happens when he reunites with Jordan Peele, even though, as we've established, we know almost nothing about this movie. So with that said, let's just move on to our next item, which is Tim Burton's next project. Chris, what do we know about that?
Tim Burton is directing a Netflix series that is a spinoff of the Addams Family. And it's about Wednesday Addams, and it's live action, and it really doesn't sound anything like previous Addams Family projects before. Here's the rundown. The upcoming 8-episode series is a sleuthing, supernaturally infused mystery charting Wednesday's years as a student at the peculiar Nevermore Academy. Wednesday's attempts to master her emerging psych ability, thwart a monstrous killing spree that has terrorized the local town, and solve the mystery that embroiled her parents 25 years ago, all while navigating her new and very tangled relationships of the strange and diverse student body. So there you have it. It's Wednesday Addams, but she's older now. She's going to a school that's kind of like, I guess, Hogwarts. She's psychic. She's solving mysteries. Yeah, there you have it.
So we knew about this project when it was first announced. Al Gough and Miles Miller, who developed Smallville, are sort of the people behind the script for this. I think they're also show running this too. Burton, as far as I understand, is going to be directing all 8 episodes. And I think we knew that much. And I want to say we knew that it was going to center on Wednesday Addams. But this plot synopsis that you just read is new. And like the extent to which this is different from, how people generally know that character is sort of shocking. I mean, we like sort of litigated the whole thing about how lazy it is for Tim Burton to step into this aesthetic last time when we had that first conversation about him joining the show. But Chris, I mean, it really seems like it can't be overstated, like how different this is. Like, what do you think about this? And I guess Burton sort of tackling this kind of material as well.
It's weird because like this sounds like everything that was inspired by the Addams Family, but not the actual Addams Family. Like, this sounds like a mix of like a series of unfortunate events and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is another Netflix show. You know, that had a secret spooky academy, and you know, it was about her navigating the student body and all that stuff. So it's very weird. Like on one hand, it's Tim Burton doing anything related to the Addams Family seems just so lazy and boring and like almost like beyond parody at this point. At the same time, this premise is so far removed from the Addams Family that it's like I really don't know what to make of this. You know, I when I was younger, when I was growing up, Tim Burton was like a huge deal for me because I was, you know, a weird outcast and his movies really spoke to me. And then as I got older, he got kind of lazy. And I don't think it's that I grew out of his films, because when I go back and rewatch his early movies, they still mostly hold up for me. It just, he reached a certain point where he just started becoming lazy, honestly. He became like a parody of himself. Like he could just plug in a formula into all his movies. Like they had the same costume design, and you know, Eva Green was in most of them, and it just felt like he was what is the phrase I'm looking for here? It's sort of like
falling in a rut.
It's more like he's like painting by numbers, basically. It's like he has a strict formula, he sticks to it, and he doesn't want to go outside of that formula at all. And it just got really boring and lazy to me. At the same time, you know, it's kind of a big deal that he's directing his first TV series. You know, he's never done that before, and I'm sure Netflix is going to throw a ton of money at him because they love spending lots of money. They don't care about that. So, you know, this might turn out to be something interesting, but I don't know.
Brad, what do you think about this, and specifically the weird, like not quite Wednesday Addams components of the, you know, the character that we've come to know?
No, sir, I don't like it. Yeah, no, it's just, yeah, like Chris said, it's predictable and it feels lazy, and like what this series doesn't feel like it's true to Wednesday Addams as a character, you know. And like even the premise itself, it also even calls back to Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children that Tim Burton also tackled, which was another choice that it's like, oh yeah, of course Tim Burton is doing this movie, and of course Eva Green is in it. And so it's just like, I don't know. I almost would have preferred they do something similar, but like with a different character. Like, you know, there are tons out there, you know, from comics or old cartoons, stuff like that. I would even prefer them to do some kind of like Riverdale approach to Scooby-Doo or something like that, as opposed to doing something, you know, with Wednesday Addams like this. And so it just, I don't know, it just all feels unnecessary, and like they're trying to fill the gap since, you know, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is over. They're like, oh, we need another show with a creepy, weird teen girl with powers and whatnot. So yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah, I hate to be like super cynical this early without even knowing like who's cast in it or really too much more about it, but it really kind of feels like one of those shows that Netflix dreams up just for the memes, like, you know, just to fill their social media accounts with memes. But anyway, hopefully it'll be better than that. And I have no idea when the show is actually going to come out. Obviously, the pandemic is still affecting a lot of production start dates and stuff like that. So I'm sure we'll be hearing much more about this show as it moves through, you know, development and closer to actually getting in front of the camera. Brad, tell me about some news about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We learned a sort of surprising bit of information about that movie today.
Yes, we did. It turns out that Doctor Strange sequel will be moving away from Michael Giacchino when it comes to having the score composed by him. He provided the music for the first movie, but recently it was confirmed by Danny Elfman himself that he will be the one providing the score for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which is very cool because not only is Danny Elfman one of the best composers around, but we know he already did incredible work for Sam Raimi on the first two Spider-Man movies, not to mention the first two Batman movies that Tim Burton did. And some people might have forgotten. I know, Ben, you and I both forgot that he did the score for Avengers Age of Ultron. So this is pretty cool. I mean, I love the scores for that, like I just mentioned, that Danny Elfman has done before, and having him reteam with Sam Raimi for Multiverse of Madness, which is already exciting in itself, is just great news. Like there's really no other way to say it. I can't wait to hear what he does, because it sounds like this movie is, really going to let Raimi get weird in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and hopefully that means Danny Elfman will be able to do some really cool stuff musically too.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that until you just said it. But like the idea that this Multiverse of Madness movie is going to introduce all of the, or not introduce necessarily, but incorporate all of these other aspects and characters from different movie universes might have, this might be a more challenging score than just, a traditional MCU thing. It might be an opportunity for him to like weave some of his own Spider-Man music back into this score and like introduce whatever other characters happen to drop in from the multiverse. They could all get their own themes and stuff like that. And I think one of the sort of like underlying or consistent through lines rather for the Marvel Cinematic Universe thus far has been a general complaint about the lack of memorability for a lot of its music. So even though you've got like people like Alan Silvestri doing and Giacchino himself doing a bunch of the scores for these movies over the past few years, I feel like that's one of the things that people sort of ding this superhero franchise in particular for, is just like music that just sort of feels blah a lot of times. But
yeah, especially because as much as I love Michael Giacchino's scores, I honestly had a hard time remembering what the theme for Doctor Strange was.
Yeah, I can't place it in my mind right now, but like I could hum, the bars from Danny Elfman's Batman score. And that I think just, I don't know if it's like, if that's a fair comparison to make, because Elfman was operating, especially in that movie, at a time when, that really was, that and Superman were kind of like the only games in town in terms of mainstream superhero movies. And Michael Giacchino is obviously like operating in an era where there's a new superhero movie coming out like every other month or whatever. So it's got to be tough to sort of create something that's going to stand out and be super memorable. But maybe Elfman will be able to do something, like you said, really interesting here. So
maybe an Oingo Boingo like song tied to Doctor Strange somehow.
Yeah, a portal opens up and it's just him and the band just rocking out with one of the full like 80s garb.
Yes.
All right, so let's move to our next story, which is Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon has found a lead actor, and it's somebody that I don't think any of us really expected to step into a lead performance in a movie of this caliber this quickly. But Chris, who is going to be starring in this film?
It is Jesse Plemons, and this is very exciting because Jesse Plemons, he's become one of those actors who anytime you see him and stuff, you're like, oh man, I love Jesse Plemons. He's just always good, but he's also pretty much been stuck playing, supporting roles. He plays supporting characters. He does great work with them, but he hasn't really led a movie. He hasn't really been the main star of a movie, really. And now he's going to be that for Killers of the Flower Moon, which is the new Martin Scorsese movie. And the story of this is it's a little detailed on how this came about, but I'll do my best to summarize it. So Killers of the Flower Moon, it's based on a book by David Graham, which is based on a true story. And that true story is in the 1920s, the Osage Nation in Oklahoma was just incredibly wealthy because they had oil under their land. And suddenly someone started targeting them and killing members of them. And so the FBI got involved, and the story follows this guy named Tom White, who is a former Texas Ranger turned FBI man investigating the case. So when this project was being developed, the idea was that Leonardo DiCaprio, who of course has worked with Martin Scorsese several times, would play that character. He would play the Tom White character. However, as the script was being written, DiCaprio started being interested in playing a different part, a more villainous role in the story. I'm being vague because I don't want to give away spoilers, even though, again, it's a true story, so you can kind of look up.
Yes, please don't. I actually just started reading this book last night, so okay. I'm curious what happens.
I will not give away the spoilers, but basically, DiCaprio wanted to play a more antagonist kind of character. And this actually caused Paramount, who was originally going to distribute the film, to get kind of nervous because they were shelling out a lot of money for this movie, and their concern was people don't want to pay money to see Leonardo DiCaprio as a bad guy. They want to see him as the good guy, which is really a dumb idea, but whatever. That's how studio thoughts work. And because of that, Apple TV had to swoop in and kind of rescue the film. So they're distributing the film now, and they're fronting all the money and all that stuff. So DiCaprio got to keep his antagonist role, but that meant they needed to find a new actor to play that lead hero. I'm putting heroes in quotes because it feels awkward to call members of the FBI heroes because we all know they're up to shady shit all the time. But he had to play the good guy, for lack of a better term, and that character is now going to be played by Jesse Plemons, which is, again, very cool that he's stepping into leading man roles, especially the fact that he's playing the lead in a film that has Leonardo DiCaprio in it, because Leonardo DiCaprio is such a huge star, but he's playing a supporting role in this.
Yeah, and like De Niro's in this too, right?
Right, yeah, he's playing DiCaprio's character's uncle.
Okay. And then, so, well, Chris, while you were talking and laying out Paramount's mindset, I just had to look up how much money Django Unchained made at the box office, because that's another movie where DiCaprio plays a villain, and that movie made $425 million worldwide. So I'm sure Paramount knows that, but and I'm not trying to call anybody an idiot, but I think that's maybe the outlier in that scenario. If that's their mindset of people just want to see DiCaprio as the hero. It's also not always true.
Even though that movie's not that old, it does feel like it's from like a different time when studios were sort of willing to be a little more risky than they are right now. So
that's true.
Studios are very, especially these days, studios are very hesitant to shell out a lot of money for movies that aren't established properties. They aren't sequels. They aren't franchises. They aren't superhero movies. And, it sucks, but that's where we are right now, where they're like, oh, even though we have Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie, we don't want him to be a bad guy. We're not going to pay for that.
So real quick before we move on, like I said, I just started this book last night. I'm only like 35 pages into it or something. And the Tom White character has not shown up yet. So I know you've read the book, Chris. In addition to just being excited for Jesse Plemons because he's a good actor to lead a Martin Scorsese movie, do you think he is like a good fit for that character?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to actually be honest and say I didn't love the book. I love David Grann's work mostly. And this is an interesting story. I just didn't love the way the book was written, if that makes sense. But I'm very excited for the movie. It's a Scorsese movie. I'm in the tank no matter what the movie's about. I'm gonna be there
for sure. Okay. So our next story involves a Constantine reboot. This is coming to HBO Max, and J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot Company is developing this. Chris, give us the details on that.
Yeah, this is another story where we don't have really a lot of info. We just know that HBO Max is doing a Constantine reboot series. They're looking for a more diverse lead for the role. So they're not going to bring back Matt Ryan, who played Constantine on the previous series. And he also played the character on the Arrowverse shows like Arrow and what's the other one? Legends of Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But he's not going to be back. The guy writing the pilot is someone named Guy Bolton, who actually has like 0 film credits. He's written 2 books, but this is sort of like his big debut making, film and TV, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to find info on him yesterday when I was writing the story, and there's like nothing out there except the fact that he, wrote those 2 books. So that's really all we know. We know it's going to be HBO Max. We know it's going to be based on the comic book character, but that's about it. That's all we have for
now. Brad, since you're always on the superhero beat, what do you know about Constantine? Have you tuned into any of those shows or like seen any of the movies that feature that character? Because I've sort of skipped a lot of the Arrowverse stuff, and I'm not super fluent in Constantine lore. But what do you know about that?
Yeah, I didn't dig into any of the Arrowverse stuff. I was aware of his presence on the shows when Matt Ryan was playing him after the show got canceled on NBC. I'm a big fan of the movie with Keanu Reeves, which I almost would prefer that they would just bring him back in some capacity and pick up that thread and turn that into a new DC franchise that could probably easily coexist with the rest of the DC stuff, all things considered. But I do know that Constantine is also part of Justice League Dark, which is something that Bad Robot is also supposed to be working on, I believe for HBO Max. And so wouldn't be surprised if this could be a potential, lead up to a bigger movie involving some of those other characters as well. But yeah, I mean, I like the character of Constantine, and I'm interested to see what they can do with him, especially in the hands of bad robots. They clearly have some kind of passion for that DC stuff, since they're digging into some of the more obscure characters that haven't really made a big journey to the big screen, or in some cases, even the small screen. Swamp Thing famously didn't go very well for that first season, and neither did Constantine, obviously. So yeah, hopefully they can do something that they'll be able to throw some money at it and do something that's a little more I guess exciting.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of superhero stuff, our last story, because of course it does, involves Zack Snyder's Justice League. Chris, give us the latest on this 4-hour movie experience that is coming in, I think, 1 month from today, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So, the Snyder Cut. Basic rundown for those who just don't know the details. And, I'm not saying I know all the details either, but Zack Snyder, supposed to direct the Justice League. He left the project due to a family tragedy. Joss Whedon came in and took over the project, and pretty much most of what hit theaters in 2017 was stuff that Joss Whedon shot or reshot. And it was not good. And Zack Snyder fans were so disappointed, they became positive that if Zack Snyder's true vision had been realized, Justice League would have been a better movie. And on top of that, they got in their head this idea that the Zack Snyder of this movie was just done and sitting on a shelf somewhere, even though it really wasn't. There was, of course, a rough cut that Zack Snyder put together before he left the project, but it was, like I said, a rough cut. It didn't have effects work. It didn't have color correcting. It didn't have any of that stuff. But the Snyder Cut fans didn't care about that. They wanted the movie to be released. And for years, they hammered this home. They insisted that Warner Brothers release the Snyder Cut, and it just felt like a pipe dream. It felt like something that wasn't going to happen. And then HBO Max came on the scene, and HBO Max is, of course, the Warner Media streaming service, and they realized they could hook a lot of new subscribers right away if they announced that they would finally be releasing the Snyder Cut, and that's what they did. So, which that meant that Snyder would actually have to finish the Snyder Cut. And to do that, HBO Max reportedly shelled out $70 million to finish the film. And rumors started surfacing as soon as this news broke that Snyder was going to reshoot scenes. He was going to bring back cast members and all this stuff. Now, as we get very close to the final release, which is it's going to be March 18th on HBO Max, we have a fuller picture. And as it turns out, Zack Snyder did shoot something new, but it was only one scene, and that's been confirmed now by Deborah Snyder, who produced the film. She confirmed that yes, we just shot one new scene, and everyone by now knows that scene is, of course, where Batman meets Jared Leto's Joker, and he talks about how we live in a society, because that was in the most recent trailer. In addition to that, Deborah Snyder, in this podcast interview, revealed that while they didn't shoot new stuff, they did create 2,650 new visual effects for the film. So that, I guess, kind of explains where that $70 million went. I'm still kind of at a loss as to why they needed that much. I get that visual effects aren't cheap, but I would love to have like an actual itemized breakdown as to what they spent all this new money on. But that's neither here nor there.
So, Chris, that is an astounding number of visual effects shots. And I know, that 2000 number got me thinking. And I looked back at our archives, and I remember writing, I found this article where I wrote at the beginning of January of this year that WandaVision has more visual effects shots than Avengers Endgame. And I remember us talking about that on the podcast. And Avengers Endgame, which is like almost 3 hours long, has almost 2,500 visual effects shots. So for this 4-hour Justice League thing to have, more than that, is I mean, pretty impressive, I guess, in terms of like the sheer number of visual effects that had to be completed to get this thing done. And I think that's got to be the answer of like where all that money went to, because in that the comments from Deborah Snyder that you can read the whole thing at the link in the show notes if you want to, but she basically talks about how like assets for the character designs and stuff existed before, but Warner Brothers actually changed a lot of that stuff from away from Zack Snyder's original vision for the theatrical cut. And now, since they're really the entire purpose of this whole Snyder cut thing is to give the fans what they want, which is like this pure uncut Snyder vision, they actually had to go back and like remap all of the, not all, but a bunch of the character designs to make it look the way that Snyder himself wanted it to look from the beginning. So I guess that's where all of that money went. But man, that is just a lot.
Let's get real here, Ben. Do you think between you and me and Brad, no one else is listening, between you and Brad, do you think Snyder pocketed most of that money and is just like laughing all the way to the bank? And if he did, does that give you more respect for him? Because honestly, it does me. You know, I don't have anything personal against Zack Snyder, but if he was really just doing this to like scam Warner Brothers out of millions of dollars, I gotta respect that. I gotta give him props for that. What do you think, Ben? What do you think, Brad?
Let's go to you first, Brad. What do you think?
I would love it if this was some kind of grift that Zack Snyder was pulling on the studio, and then there'll be a movie in like 10 years about this heist where Zack Snyder stole $75 million from Warner Brothers.
As really amusing as that idea is, I don't think that's probably what happened.
I do wonder, like, it seems so weird to me that they only shot one new scene, and I wonder if it's a matter of like context of what they believe is a new scene, because I wonder if they still did shoot extra footage, but it was stuff that isn't necessarily new scenes. It's stuff that maybe was already shot that needed to be finished, like we talked about before, or like maybe if they don't consider reshoots new scenes because it's stuff that maybe Zack Snyder had always wanted to shoot, or something like that. Because
it builds on a scene that actually existed in the theatrical cut, but it just like adds different context or something.
Yeah, because I find it hard to believe that they only shot one new scene for this 4-hour thing. So I feel like there has to be more to it than that.
Maybe Jared Leto's quote was like 70 million, and then they spent the other, 4 million or whatever on visual effects. I don't know. All right. I think that's going to bring us to the end of today's episode of the show. You can find more about all the stories that we mentioned on today's show at slashfilm.com and linked inside the show notes of this episode. Slash Film Daily is published every weekday, bringing you the most exciting news from the world of movies and TV, as well as deeper dives into the great features that you can find on the site. You can subscribe to the show on Apple, Google, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. And be sure to send your feedback, questions, comments, concerns, and mailbag topics to us at peter@slashfilm.com. Make sure to leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention your email on the air. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word. Thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you tomorrow.